Welcome back to another episode of The Walking Trophy. Today, I'm really excited for my guest today, actually, because we've been having some really fun conversations behind the scenes. I'm very excited to bring this forward today. So, my guest today is Katy Culver, and Katy helps ambitious women build their living legacy. The 10x bolder life and business their soul came here on this planet to create. I freaking love that. She does this by helping them lead with their intuitive soul vision and quantum leap into the identity recoding, which we're definitely going to get into today because I'm really excited to learn about that. This is her proprietary method that creates coherence across mind, body, and soul to shift on a cellular level, aka everything I love in this world. So, Katy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Caitlin.
Oh my God, I'm really excited because even some of the words that you share, like with your business and some of the methodologies that like they're trademarked to you, you've created these methodologies. It's really exciting to me because not only do I think these are subjects that deserve a bigger platform in this space, I think there needs to be a lot more conversation around them, but it's so fascinating hearing how people have come into this work because everybody has such a unique story with it. So I would actually love from the beginning here to get to know a little bit about young Katy, little Katy. When you were younger, can you give me three words that would have described your personality when you were young? Because I'm so curious how you came into the woman that you are today.
Ooh, I love this question. Way to get right into it. When I was little, I always picture my like 8-year-old self, and I was really driven when it came to school. I was also in Taekwondo for my entire childhood. So I was
So
a
cool.
in karate and I was like fighting the boys and all of that, which really gave me this like grit and tenacity. I was also very guess like very sweet could be one. Like I love to make little cards and little gifts for people and I was really creative as well. And I think I lost that a little bit or I didn't think I was creative for a long time in high school and college. And now like literally building a creative, creator driven kind of business. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so creative. But as a kid, I very much was. And I loved speaking. I even wrote songs and put in the talent show or whatever. Um, I loved writing poetry, all these creative things that I then kind of like forgot about as I got into like the math and science world growing up.
Okay, first of all, that's super cool. I didn't know you did Taekwondo. I feel like that's actually quite unique to hear a child do that. And it's cool, like you were the girl fighting the boys. Totally get it and resonate with that quite a bit, actually. And I love what you said about creativity because I actually relate to that quite a bit as well. I was also doing the same thing, like writing books. I even used to write songs, like musical theater, the whole thing growing up. And then at some point, school really does kind of systematize the numbers, the grades, the more quantifiable over the creative expression. And so I'd actually love to hear about how you feel like you brought creativity back into your life. So what kind of snapped for you or changed for you to go, damn, like, where did my creativity go and how did it come back into your life?
That's a really good question. I remember when I graduated college, so I studied chemical engineering, which is very non-creative, I guess, in a lot of ways. It's like I didn't even take humanities classes because I was like, I got to focus on my GPA. I'm not going to take, the fun classes, so to
Mhm.
speak. And it wasn't until like after I graduated, I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of writing, and it's like you start your job, and then you're like, well, what's next? And it's interesting because I had always wanted to have a podcast. And I used to listen to podcasts religiously. And one time I was listening to a podcast while I was driving back to my apartment in Chicago from Michigan, where I'm from. And it was a motivational one. I think it was from Rachel Hollis. I know she's been canceled since then, but it was so it was so motivating that I went home and I started the podcast that day. I literally was
Okay,
like,
so an
this is on
immediate
the
action taker. Like this is a thing for you. This is a pattern.
yeah, I mean, well, it's more of like I thought about it. I have learned to become much shorter from my idea to
Mm.
execution, but um it was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm starting it. And it's interesting because what I talked about on that podcast, it was called Why Not Me? And it was kind of like how I built this, interviewing people who I thought were normal people who had started a business or taken a leap and why they did that and believing in themselves enough to go for it. I'm like, that's everything I talk about now. But I was 24 at the time when I started this. And I had to get over the fear of like being perceived and being seen. And I remember people from my high school, like random guys from my high school, were like, one of them messaged me. I was not friends with them. And they were like, we were all listening on a road trip. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so embarrassing. But then people started being like, I really like what you're putting out there. I like listening to your podcast. It's really motivating for me. So that was a creative pursuit. But what happened, the reason why I killed it off partially was because I put so much pressure on myself to get it perfect, get it right. I would sit there editing out every and ah till that it wasn't fun anymore. And I wasn't thinking like, oh, I could just hire someone to be an editor. I just moved to New York City during COVID, right before COVID, actually, and then was like, I'm just going to live my best life in New York and kind of forgot about it. And that was like a creative project that I enjoyed. And then I started bringing back other creative writing and things later on. But that was what really kickstarted it again.
Wow. So I actually something that you said in there really stuck out to me because this is one of the questions I was actually going to ask you is you'd said that, there was this whole aspect of I need to be okay being seen and being visible. And then some people are really terrified of people from high school. I feel like specifically people from high school live in people's mind as like this invisible force that they're terrified of. And that actually quite came to reality. And
Yeah.
it was in a good way because people said they really appreciated what you were saying. But even having to confront that of, oh my God, you were listening to me on a road trip, like how did you feel like that either affected or impacted your ability to go, I can be visible or wow, I'm really afraid of being visible? Like what kind of impact did that situation have on you and how do you feel like it's led forward in you creating your entire career?
Yeah, I feel like for me, the more that I am bringing forward something and getting visible for something that is so true for me, that is my truth, and I'm so convicted in that, it's like, I don't really care if someone else doesn't get it because this is my truth of what's true for me. It's not like I'm trying to perform and like, what do other people want from me? And therefore, if they don't like it, then I have failed at that mission rather than I'm doing this to express, to share something that feels true and alive for me. And therefore I've become more and more rooted in myself and what I believe and what I think through that journey of expression. I think a lot of people are like, well, let me figure out my message perfectly and then I'll share it. You figure out your message by sharing it and by talking about it and getting more refined. And I found that when I started my personal brand on LinkedIn as well, which was also kind of a nerve wracking thing of being seen. I think that's why a lot of people don't go on LinkedIn. For me, it was like my whole professional history is there. And if I say something and I think, if my goal is to be smart and people are like, yeah, we knew that, then I have failed. But if my goal is just teach what I've learned and what I wish I knew a few years ago, I started to realize things that I thought were really normal, that like basic knowledge, people were mind blown. And it in the process of writing every single day, I realized and it helped me like codify my own thinking about things. So that is the beauty of creating is it's like, what do I even think about this? Until you go and teach it to someone else or explain it, you might not really know.
Holy moly. That was a little masterclass right there because the way so many people keep themselves stuck from radically expressing themselves, like, I think you really just nailed the crux of it right there, where you were like, well, if you were relying on the outside opinion of others to validate whether that was a true thing or not, then you're constantly gonna be in this almost like fight or flight state while you're
Yeah.
creating, as opposed to what you said, which is if this is my truth, then there's nothing on the line. This is me just radically expressing myself. And how you said that writing every single day, you said that was a really good way of getting to know yourself. So was that specifically writing podcasts? Was it writing posts? Like what was that process like for you of getting to know yourself every day?
Yeah, so what I was just referencing was when I started writing on LinkedIn when I was like, I'm
Okay.
gonna build a personal brand. Actually, prior to that, so I started the podcast was in 2019. I started that. I was like, finally hit a point of like, I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm motivated. I'm gonna just do it before I get too scared not to do it. And then that winter, that was in the fall, that winter I moved to New York City and COVID happened 6 weeks later. And I still did a little bit of my podcast, but then about a year later, I was like, cool, I'm ready for a career change.
Mm.
And I ended up taking a sabbatical from my job. And in that time, I wanted to start writing online. And I went to Twitter because that was not where my company was on LinkedIn. And I thought, okay, great. I can like start to this career pivot and talk about what I'm learning. The topics I chose for my 30-day writing challenge, mindset and behavior change, navigating career transitions, and community, all topics I still talk about. And it's interesting when you look back, like these threads tend to be there, right? These threads of things that we care about that we want to express. And if your goal is to express truth, you can capture that over time rather than what do I say so that people respond in XYZ ways. And, there's ways to be skillful about marketing. It's not to say that doesn't matter at all. But when I look at the threads of me being fully expressed and allowing myself to just share what was true and alive for me, the threads were always there and the dots connect really obviously looking back in a way that they maybe didn't when I was just looking forward.
Oh man, that is such a good point. It's funny that invisible string is always running through things. Okay, wow, that's I hope people are taking notes on this. This is so important. This conversation, especially for women, like this needs to be had just about allowing yourself to exist in your truest form, in your truest honesty, and the way that that really builds the life. Like intentionally, obviously, you're taking steps to build your life, but even subconsciously, even creeping behind the scenes, the way that it's building you into this platform that you know you're supposed to step into. So I know that oftentimes when we are honest publicly, even just within ourselves, but specifically publicly on a platform, are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Of course.
Okay, I figured I didn't even have to ask that. But so the concept of a vulnerability hangover. Have you ever had vulnerability hangovers where you put something out there, it was a really true expression of yourself, and then you had that feeling afterwards where you felt, "Oh my god, I can't believe I just said that publicly," or any level of getting in your head afterwards. Have you ever had experiences like that? And if you did, how did you navigate
Yeah, I've had many.
it?
I would say less and less, maybe not that many, but um I'll give you a couple of examples recently because in kind of this journey of continuing to express myself and get more realigned based on that, I shifted my business in a big way over the last 4-ish months or so. And one of the ways that I needed to shift it was essentially rebranding my entire LinkedIn profile, which was my core brand. I have like almost 20,000 followers there. And I delayed doing it because I was, like, trying so hard to find the right language, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is a really big way," and for me, that part of that rebrand was bringing in more of my spirituality, more soul work into how I was talking about my work, and that felt really foreign and like a big difference. So, I did feel a little nervous, like, after I published it, and then as I was talking to people, they're like, "Wow, that's so inspiring. I can feel your energy when you talk about this. You're coming alive." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, great." Like that's giving me a little bit of a boost there. And then I also noticed that in this journey of shifting my business in a big way and changing how I'm known and changing what I'm talking about, or I should say deepening it. A lot of it is the same themes, but in a different context. And I started to feel like I wasn't fully expressing my truth and what I was sharing. So I started a visibility experiment, which is really interesting. I feel like this is becoming a core part of my work. But a visibility experiment called Truth Before Proof. It was a series originally for TikTok, and I was like, I'm just going to repost to Instagram, even though people say you're not supposed to just repost to Instagram. And I was like, okay, the only goal of this is to fully express because I found that I had learned how to do that in writing, but you can edit writing. You can't edit so much your yap videos and it still seems natural, right? So I was like, I'm going to do this regardless of what I look like, regardless of how I feel, regardless of what the lighting is, no matter the time of day. My goal is to post once a day and just share my truth. And I called it like behind the scenes of my quantum leap and really claiming I am in a leap while I'm doing this, which is by definition, we don't know where we're going to end up, but we're claiming it and being bold about that. And in that expression, there was a few weeks ago, I was just had this wave of sadness and of just like I feel frustration hit me and I started crying and I have the somatic tools to kind of talk myself through that and feel into the resistance. And I was like, you know what? Let me record this right now. And part of me was like, maybe one day I'll share this when the story's all complete and everything's perfect, all worked out. And here's the crying video from before. And my intuition was like, no, you need to share it now. And I took this video that was like, I'm feeling really raw, but I still kind of brought back the point. And I posted this video and I definitely had a vulnerability hangover from that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels really raw. It was my best performing video. So many people reached out to me and said, I love what you're doing. Keep going. I can feel your frequency, to feel your energy. And then like a week later, someone else started a visibility experiment and were like, you inspired me to do this. And I'm just like, wow. Now, then I actually reshared that video to my personal Instagram, which I was like, that's really saying I did this crying video because I was feeling shame about not being all the way where I wanted to be yet, and all these like dumb, inner stories we tell ourselves. And by sharing that raw moment, I freed myself. I was like, well, if I can be perceived in this state, then of course I'm okay being perceived when I'm at my best, when I'm on a podcast like this and I'm all energized. And it gave me so much freedom and conviction. And the more that I've expressed, the more convicted I am in my message and what I have to share. And it's just like rather than a vicious cycle, it's a virtuous cycle.
Oh, I love that. That is a beautiful, beautiful reframe. I also want to acknowledge what you just said because, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Second of all, I remember that video. Like, we're relatively new to each other's worlds. And I remember listening to that video. And I think I even commented on it. I reached out to you in some way and I said, thank you, because relatable. I mean, everything that you shared in that video and even just now in terms of, yeah, like, feeling you were at a different place or giving yourself, that shame that I could be here, having all of the things that you mentioned in the video. I recently went through my own situation where I had the exact same experience. And I love the movement where creators and coaches and leaders are moving into the space where they feel like they can share those vulnerability moments because even though you had that vulnerability hangover, the impact that it had on everybody that got to witness it, like even myself included. And I know, something that you do identity recoding. You help women through these exact challenges. I also help women like stay on top of their game, keep the momentum moving forward. And so sometimes as the leader in this space, when you have your own moments of, damn, I wasn't living in full alignment or I let myself go, whatever it is, it can be debilitating from the shame because you feel like, well, what at least for me, what kind of leader am I if I can't embody my own work or if I fall short on this? How am I supposed to lead others through this? And so what I love so much about people coming forward and sharing their stories and their experiences with this is, hey, every single one of us is human. Even if we teach it, we'll still have our own moments. And contrary to what I said earlier, I actually think that makes you the best embodiment of what you teach and of what you preach because now you can hold the hand of all the people you're going to help as they go through it. You can have a deeper understanding. You can get even more embodied in your own work and in your own method to be able to lead on an even deeper level. So I love that you shared that. I actively remember that video. And like you said, this was weeks ago. And how much content do we consume regularly?
Oh my.
And that video still stands out to me. So it really did its job. So actually kind of getting into your methodology here, what when you were going through this realization, this moment of wishing you were in a different place, or I don't want to put words in your mouth so you can describe it, how did you rely on the tools that you have learned and you have cultivated and what you help people through to help you navigate this moment?
Yeah, I love this question. Yeah, it was this moment of just frustration of being like, I should have figured this out by now, and I think I help women a lot get clarity, but on like a true depth kind of way. And I think, there are many layers to clarity. And oftentimes we're looking for the nth degree when we actually do have clarity. When we tell it to other people, they're like, sounds clear to me. But we just need to know the step one, two, three, four, five in order to feel fully clear. So,
Mm.
anyways, I was just a little bit judging myself. Like I found something essentially that I had created 3 months ago that I was like, "It's been here all along. Why was I not just doing what I thought 3 months ago when I was really confident?" Right? So, anyways, what I did in that moment, so identity recoding is really about creating coherence between your mind, body, and soul. And I think a lot of people talk about body work, somatic work, reprogramming work, nervous system regulation, all those things. But I find what's often missing from the conversation is, yes, we're changing our identity, but in what direction? We could be anybody. We can choose to be whoever. And if we can really allow that soul piece to be the intuitive guide, I go through a whole process with women to help them uncover their soul vision, which leads to your legacy and your purpose. But it's like if our soul is kind of leading the direction of I feel expanded, I want to go in this direction, like my soul, my intuition was very much like, "You need to post this now." And I listened to it.
Right.
That had an edge for me that I was meant to brush up against and start to recode. So when I think about the actual process that follows that, it's like, cool, that's part of the direction piece. Is like, where am I being pulled to go right now? But then the mind is consciously, we can tell ourselves it's okay to be vulnerable. It's important to be vulnerable. It's important to share your work because the whole reason I began this challenge was because I said, my future self, who is seen on stages, She has a huge audience. She's very comfortable putting a camera on, no matter what she looks like, no matter what's going on, to share a thought, and she trusts what she has to share. And I was like, well, that's not going to just happen overnight. I am going to become her today, now. And that's part of the method, right? Casting the character of who you want to be, stepping into that version of yourself. But then in the moments of resistance, in the moments of like, I don't really want to do that thing that I consciously chose to do, that's where the body level work comes in, and actually allowing yourself to get in touch with the parts of you that just want to feel safe and loved and validated, protected, and be able to bring those parts along for the ride, not to kill them off. I think that's part of some of the common conversation I've seen lately is like, oh, let's kill off these old identities and we can shed them. We can, send them love and thank them for where they got us to so far. And at the same time, make peace with them and reintegrate so that all of us is moving forward on that action, and the identity recoding happens on like every single layer of who we are.
This is so important. This work is so important. What I love about what you just said is the integration of the systems. Like, the word coherence really makes so much sense when you break it down that way. Is it's not just your mind, it's not just your body, it's not just your soul. It is a beautiful ecosystem of all three of them communicating with each other. That's beautiful because the way it teaches you to full circle back to what we were talking about earlier, be your own guide, be your own compass because you fully trust in your own truth and you know that the communications that your system is getting is your full authentic truth. This is such a beautiful methodology. And what's interesting is I don't hear many people talking about it, even though when you describe it, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's almost so obvious, but nobody's talking about it. So I would actually be so fascinated to know between the somatic work, the mind work, the soul work, like the spirituality, the energetics, everything, what what experiences have you had? What trainings have you gone through? What work have you done to prepare you to like create this methodology? Because it's so beautiful and unique. Like, what is your background in all of this?
That's a really good question. Thanks for asking. It's funny because along my journey of building my first business, which was really operating mostly in the cerebral layer of
Yeah.
like, cool, we can strategize what we want and then figure out the identity shift to get there and tactically. But I wasn't really dropping it into the body and allowing more of the soul work to come through because I was kind of hiding that part of myself.
Yeah,
But
I
through
think
my
most people are at that level too, by the way. The whole industry is at the level that you just explained, which is why I really like what you're talking about. So I'm like, no, it's deeper than that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's so important there. You're like, it's not just that, there's more to it.
Yeah, and I've also found, just quick aside, that when we do speak to the mind, we get immediate validation because people are like, "Oh, aha, idea, breakthrough," and we feel validated. "Oh, I gave this person a breakthrough." But sometimes the deeper shifts are more like a, "Oh, oh, what? Wait, I think I need to sit with that." And that's where the real recoding starts to happen in real time, but it's like the integration happens after that. But it's funny because people would always ask me, "You seem like you have a really great mindset. Do you have a course that you've done?" I'm like, "Hmm, what have I not done?" It's really not, you probably get those questions like, "You seem to be really confident. Do you have like a podcast that I should listen to?" And you're like, "Oh, yeah, okay. We've got to commit to the process, to the journey." And I think it's fair. You're laughing because it's so true.
Yes.
It's fair to say, like, my dad is like, "Katie, you are a different person." And it is very true. Like, when I talk about identity recoding, like, I am a fundamentally different person. I just removed all the pieces that weren't really me. So my true essence, my true self could really emerge. But I used to be so type A, so afraid to fail, so a perfectionist, so overachiever. And I needed so much external validation in order to do really anything. And it's interesting because now so driven by, like I said, my truth. Like, I feel so convicted in who I am and where I'm going that I can operate with that compass. But this journey happened through such a series of things. Like, I had my first ever career transition coach at one point when I was in corporate and started to learn a little bit more about my underlying beliefs and behaviors. I did a mastermind with Benjamin Hardy, who's like the king of identity work
Aw.
around using your identity as a tool and scaling as a science is what he teaches, the science of radical transformation. or rapid transformation. He's written a ton of books about it, but I got to actually work in his mastermind, which was incredibly insightful. And I was very early on in my business journey. Um, and then what else did I do? The past year, I was in a community for people who really want to do conscious sales. And it was a lot of inner work. We did a ton of breath work. I went to 5 different retreats last year, just did so much somatic work in those experiences, along with being in groups of people and sharing your truth that you're scared to share and all of those kind of shame slaying moments. And I've been going on retreats since I was in high school. Like that's not a new thing for me.
Wow.
So it's really like a lifetime of work. I feel like I stopped listening to music at the gym and just listened to things about mindset and manifestation and listen to, audios from Abraham Hicks and Joe Dispenza and all those beautiful things. And also when I was a kid, I grew up actually quite religious and I was always very, very spiritual. And it's interesting because the more in my head I got, the less I like was able to rely on that. But the more that I clear my channel, I get out of my head into my body, the more guidance that I have, the more supported I have, the more I can just do things that require ridiculous amounts of uncertainty and risk. And I'm like, cool, we're good. Like, so my nervous system's entirely different, so it's such a stack of things. And that's why I struggle to be like, I did not do a certification for this. Like, this is true lived experience from being a person who was so like, I was terrified to take an afternoon off when I started my business. I had like a ton of clients come in my group coaching program. And I remember being on a coaching call and my coach was like, just take a day off. You really need to. And I was like, I can't. I was like, I have to be there for them. It's crazy to think that I was doing that. And I did so much subconscious rewiring, nervous system work, but it's such a stack of every tool. And so the way that I designed identity recoding is like, what is the best of everything that I've ever tried? And stacking it in a way that sequentially it makes sense. Cause I feel like I'm really going on here, but what I
Keep
found,
going.
okay, what I found, for example, in my career transition coaching program, I have a whole module and process around getting clarity of what you want to do next in your career, all the way from long term vision to immediate next move. And in that process, lots of people were like, I've asked similar questions of myself before. I've tried to get this clarity in other ways, but it never clicked. And I find that the order in which we do things makes a really big difference. So we could be asking ourselves all these questions and learning all these different tools, but until you stack them in a flow that actually makes sense and it sticks in a deeper way, it feels like you're doing the same things all over again. So, anyways, I'll pause there.
I'm kind of sitting back wowed right now. I really feel like I personally am learning a lot right now, which is amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that. Again, an important conversation that needs to be had is it's not the podcast, it's not the book, it's not the who did you pay for a 60-minute one-to-one call. It's like, no, what culmination of life experiences has led you to this point? What's your journey been like? What have the steps looked like? What have you truly learned about yourself and embodied in your own experience? And I love that you said that because it's both the permission slip that, hey, you can try a lot of things, and it is the nudge to say, and don't give up. Keep persisting with them. Like allow this journey to cultivate and expand and evolve with you. Now, something that I would love to hear, because you said it was so much of your life experiences and the things you've been through, is I know something about you is that you travel quite a bit. And I would love to hear about how this traveling, first of all, when it came around, how you decided to do it. Because so far I've known you in 2 different locations and a third one's coming soon. And I'm sure that's just the beginning. And I love it. Makes me so happy and inspired, honestly. So I'd love to hear what role travel plays in your life, how it's impacted you as a person, any role maybe it's played in your business, and like how you came into this like somewhat nomadic lifestyle, if you want to describe it that way.
Yeah, I'm a full-time digital nomad, so
Love
100%.
it.
No, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before, and it's interesting. I think of travel originally for me growing up was just something that felt really expansive. It was like I remember being 10 years old, and my aunt was like, "We're going to take you to New York City one day," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds great!" Right? And then my first job out of college was consulting, and I traveled for work, and I was like, "Cool, I get paid to travel. This is so amazing." And of course, you didn't get to pick exactly the places that I traveled all the time, but sometimes it was really cool. And travel has always been an important part of my life. And I think for me, location freedom has always been really important as well. And I get my sense of security, I've found, not from being in a location necessarily, but from myself, which is a really important part of being able to travel a lot. That said, environments bring out different versions of ourselves. So originally, I started traveling. Actually, during COVID, I thought it was cool that lots of people were traveling. I had just moved to New York City and signed a year and a half long lease, and I did not travel almost at all during that time. But at the end of 2023, one of my friends was like, "Hey, we're going to go to Argentina for a month. You're coming, and you're coming too." It was like my coworker. We could work remote, so we just went. And I went right after daylight savings. In New York City, it had just turned dark at 4 PM and it was getting cold. And then I went to Argentina and it was summer. And I'm like, this is the biggest hack on the planet that no one is talking about, that you can hack your time of the year and your weather. So, anyways, I wanted to travel more. And then when I had planned to quit my job at the beginning of 2024, I lived in New York and I really didn't want to leave living in Brooklyn. But I mapped out like, okay, I quit my job, not because I replaced my income, but just because I was betting on myself and I'd saved up a lot of cash. And it was like, how long can I live in New York? So it got to the point of the summer where I decided to sublet my apartment. I had a wedding in Italy, a wedding in Michigan. I was traveling anyways. So I was gone for the summer and was like, kind of came back making a decision like, do I go for this? It was scary to let go of an apartment. And I did what I always do. I said, let it be an experiment. So it was an experiment. I gave up my apartment. And I think that doing that, looking backwards, was extremely necessary for me to evolve because you can be anyone when you go to a new place. The same reason when I moved to New York City, I was like, oh, I get to be this new version of myself. When you go to a new place, whether it's a vacation or a longer stint, different environments bring out different versions of us. And that's what happened for me in traveling. And, like I went to Portugal and I loved who I was there. Now I'm moving there. I'm like going through the visa process. I'm in Costa Rica because I love the energy that it brings out from me. I tend to be really dropped in. My voice gets a few octaves lower because I'm so relaxed here. So it's like you can go different places and try it out. And I was worried about like, how am I going to grow my business if I'm moving around all the time? To be fair, like it's better if you're in somewhere for at least like a month. Otherwise, it's moving around and I have done that. But I personally have realized like, oh, the more daylight I have, the better weather, the happier I'm gonna be. So I should really optimize around that. So it has pros and cons for certain, but I have made some incredible friends. And for me, it was an identity expansion portal that I needed in order to reach the point I am now.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be so curious how, because every time you step into an environment, like, yeah, you get to be someone new, and there's so much uncertainty and unknown and newness. And, I imagine there's a lot of having to build your relationship with transition, build your relationship with stepping into new environments where you don't know anything, which can often, it can induce fear in some people. It can be intimidating. So when you go to, a new city, you just got to Costa Rica, you're about to go to Portugal. Do you have any methods, any actions, any habits when you get to new places where you're like, this helps me really integrate, this helps me be really grounded, this helps me really get to enjoy the environment that I'm in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I also think it teaches you in general traveling, especially as a nomad or if you're going for an extended period of time. It just teaches you like everything is super easy to figure out. Once you get into the
Love
travel
that.
community, you know people everywhere. Like I could go to Asia right now and move into a house in Vietnam and know 12 people there. Like it's very easy to do random things like that once you get into the communities where it is normalized. But when I go to a new place, I know that for me, setting up a good anchor routine is really important. And I also I always choose a place that has a desk. If I don't have a desk, then I'm going to be all over the place. Like, I need to get a desk or I have a folding table. That works. That's okay. That's what they had. But I try to set up a core anchor routine. It's like, where am I going to work out? What time am I going to work out? Because depending on the time zones, like I was just in Cape Town in South Africa, and that was like my meetings were starting at 4 p.m. So it's just like you're going to change your schedule based on where you are. Here I'm on mountain time, so it's like even more behind. So you kind of flex based on the environment. It's like where am I going to work out? When am I going to work out? And then kind of habit stacking around that, like my meditation, my journaling, eating. You got to figure out your grocery store. That's always a big thing in the beginning. And then I think it's just like I tend to when I first started nomading, I was with friends and then I tried some by myself. Before I was in the travel community, it was super lonely. I didn't really know how to meet people. But then I stayed in a co-living, which is like a community that's essentially set up for remote workers for people to just come and travel and you have your own desk and you have like a shared living space. And a lot of people are really anti that. And it's hilarious because like right now in Costa Rica, I'm living with three other entrepreneurs, real estate investors. And they are all like, "We haven't had roommates in years." To be fair, we have a really nice house here with our own bathroom, and there's like a cleaner that helps us. So it's like kind of high end co-living. But everyone's like, "This is amazing community building. Like we get to live with friends. We cooked fish tacos last night for dinner." There's so much richness that comes in living in community, and that's one of the things I discovered from traveling that I
Mm.
think the US really misses out on, especially as people are single for longer in their lives than maybe 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure. The community point of that I think is so huge, and I agree completely. I think there's a lot of isolation just in our current culture. So it's cool even to hear that people who hadn't had roommates in a while came back into a community situation. They were like, "Oh, this is great.
So
Like,
fun.
connect to people. I love it." So, I also like how you said that it gets you used to just like, how can I make the best of everything? How do I get to make this situation the best it gets to be coming into all of these new environments? And like everything is easier than you think to figure out. I love those are important takeaways. I think it's great for people to hear that from all kinds of perspectives that can extrapolate to far beyond just travel too. Now, when you were talking, I thought it was really funny how I was like, oh, yeah, they're any anchoring, habits, routines, whatever it is. And it seemed like the habit stacking you created was around your workout, which is funny because so many people have to habit stack to get their workouts in. And you're like, no, that's my anchor. I habit stack around the workout because I know that's going to happen. So, what role has your fitness, your health, um, you know, your workouts in general in the gym? Because I know you said you do gym workouts specifically. What role has that played in not just building your business and allowing that to be an anchor for you, but in building your identity as a whole?
That's an amazing question. And I'll be totally honest, the gym, it can be hard to do while traveling. But
I
that's
can
a
imagine. Yeah.
story. That's a story. It doesn't have to be true. It's just a matter
Mhm.
of commitment. But okay, so for right now I'm in Costa Rica for 6 weeks. The best gym in the town, it's a really small town, is right at the bottom of the hill. Perfection. Amazing. Join the gym day 1. Cool. Great. The gym is right across from the beach. After I go to the gym, I'll go on a little walk for the beach, send my voice notes. Like you get
Right.
to I know, it's just like the people forget, like you could just live wherever, especially if you have your own business. Like you can just do things. But
It's okay.
anyway, it's wild. But it's funny because I have found personally, like when I was working in corporate, starting my business on the side before I left, the seasons where I got really locked in at the gym, actually the very first time I ever got locked into the gym, I used to do Orange Theory, wouldn't recommend. But when I got into like actual weightlifting, I bought an 8-week workout program and the decision was made to do the program. I was like, I am tired of feeling not so good in my body. I got back from a beach vacation in Thailand right after the holidays, which was a long time of vacationing and eating a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to lock into this workout routine. My decision's made that I'm doing it. I'm going every day. I'm following the plan. And then the decision became, what time am I going to go? Well, that's going to be 7 a.m. or whatever. Then it's, what weights am I going to do? What am I going to wear to the gym tomorrow? Your decisions, you got to remove the decisions, especially traveling. There's like infinite things you can do every day. So remove the decision. Where are you going to work out? What are you going to do there? And when are you going to do it? And then everything else can fall into place. But I found that doing that workout program, I like kind of going back in time now, but when I started originally, that commitment was the first time that I felt like I had really followed through on something like really disciplined like that in a long time. And then about a month in, I was like, I'm going to start the business that I've been thinking about for years because I said I can follow through on this commitment. And then there were various seasons where I would kind of fall off and whatever. And when I got really locked into this is kind of part of the identity recoding method as well, is like, how are you really cultivating your energy? Because the times that I would habit stack, I'm at the gym, I'm also reprogramming my brain while I'm working out. Oh my gosh. And I'm building self trust. And then this is giving me energy to go pour into my visibility actions, into selling people and creating offers. Like that is so important. And so for me, like I've realized it's got to be a non-negotiable because my future self is ridiculously in shape. She's ridiculously committed. And like if all else fails, if our body fails, we have no vessel to carry out this mission that we have in our heart.
Amen to that. I love that. I love how you made the connection to you get to literally rewire your brain in these situations. You learned how to follow through in your physical body and it inspired you to finally start the business. Like Oh, the revelations and the sheer freaking confidence that showing up for yourself gives you every single day with, like, a hard ass workout, 'cause can't imagine they were easy. The push, it is that push that allows you to realize, "Oh, I'm capable as hell." So
Yeah.
that's it's so cool to hear you say that, and I love that you shared that, like, sometimes it's not the easiest, but that's also just a story. I can figure it out. I can make it work. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
The beginning of this year, it's always, the beginning of the year, everyone sets new health goals. I feel like that's common for most people. And I made a new mantra that was like, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. Like, what is hard is emotional pain and grief and going through things with your family and your children. Like, that's hard, right? That's
Mhm.
challenging. It's not that hard to drink your water. It's not that hard to eat generally well. It's not that hard to move your body every day. And it's like, I told it to my friends and now they say it to me all the time. They're like, it's not that hard. And when you reframe it that way, it's like, well, that kind of melts my excuses because you're right. Like, it's just a story that it's really not that difficult. And people are out here doing way harder things than this.
I'm clipping that. That's the social media post right there. It's not hard, drink your water, kids. You're making this way too hard. It's just all the mind drama.
It is.
Actually,
What we do.
yeah, yeah. Even to something you said earlier that I was like, "Yes, that highlight that right there," is you said that you made the decision that you're going to get this program done, and that was it. The second you made the decision, the mind drama, gone. It just became who you are and what you do. The only thing you had to decide was like, "What time am I going, and what workout am I doing when I get there?" And you would figure out the time, and you had the workout program to follow. So, like, the decision was made, so you just followed through on the action. And
And, and you have to remake that decision every day.
yes. Yes, exactly, exactly. And every time you made that decision, that was just a further confirmation to yourself that you were worth choosing. You were worth putting effort into that day. You were building yourself up. Nobody else gets to live in your body. That's just you. That's you showing
Yeah.
up solely for you. It's amazing.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll add, and I know that you're on board with this, is, oftentimes we've been taught that entrepreneurship has to be really hard. Like, it's going to be really hard, everybody. So just suck it up. It's going to be really hard. But what that gets us oftentimes is we choose suffering because we think that that's required for success. And so oftentimes what that looks like, especially when you're scaling, is, sometimes we end up in back to back calls, especially if you're doing sales calls, client calls, and then podcasts. And it's like we end up in this calendar where we just have no space. And then what's the first thing to go? Oh, I don't have time to work out today. I'm in a launch. I don't have time to do this. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. If we're scaling a company without actually caring for ourselves at the most basic level, then what we're telling ourselves, and I did this to be fair, I'm not saying like I never did this. We're telling ourselves that in order to scale, I have to sacrifice my body subconsciously, and that is the lesson that we are learning. And so if you can't move your body in the lunch, if you can't, then that's what we're learning, and then we're going to not want to do it again. And I find for me, it's like I can go a week with like grinding and focusing, and but eventually that lack of sleep catches up and then you start to feel resentful. Like, why didn't I take better care of myself? But that first week, you're like, I don't need it. I'm good. I have so much energy. Right. And then it starts to degrade over time and we start to resent that success that we got because we had to give up ourselves to get there. So I'm on a mission to say, like, we don't need to suffer to be successful. I'm really tired of men who've built big companies. They've sold it for 100 million, being like, I didn't need to suffer. And I wish I knew that sooner. I'm so tired of that. Can we as women just commit to building businesses in an all in? I call it being all in. And if you are all in and building something for the long term, then you're not building it in a way that you're sacrificing yourself to get there because this is a long term game. If we're playing a long term game, we've got to do it in a way that feels good for us and gives us energy to keep pouring into the mission because people need our work.
Mic fucking drop. That's it. We're ending it. I don't want to, that was perfect. But truly, truly, that needs to be said. That needs to be understood. Dude, I'm like all in on you right now. I am so bought in. Can you, because I would love to see like an example or almost like a visual representation or a story told visual, if you will, of how you have worked through an upper limit, a limiting belief, an outdated identity. How have you used your own identity recoding system to help you through a transition or a navigation of some kind so we can get a feel for like what it looks like to be in Katie's world and like work through what you're struggling with identity recoding?
Yeah, great question. So I might touch on some things that I already talked about, but we'll give it more color. So
Yes.
when I was first like kind of looking at my business, and I think it was October 2025 when I had a thought of like, should I just burn it all down? And that was like the first, and I was like, no, no, go away. We're good. Good. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, something more drastic has got to change than just putting out a new offer. And so I had that thought, and I allowed myself the space over the coming months to let the next thing land. And I'm very good at getting clarity, but I also find that that's helpful to do with other people who can pull it out of you, and that's why my clients work with me. It's like you can sit there all day and think about what you want, but until somebody else is like, "No, I see this in you," and I like extract out what it is that you're really good at, what you want to do, then it can be harder to align with that. So anyways, I had already done that soul vision work where I was like, I know
Mhm.
what my vision is. I know what I'm becoming. And then the identity recoding piece comes in because it's like, okay, I've got the vision, but how do I actually get there? And so then the second piece is the version. What version of you lives in that vision? That version of you who lives in this future vision reality, not necessarily how much money does she have and how does she spend her money, right? Because that's going to change over time. We can think
Right.
about how she makes investments and all of that, but it's like, what are the habits that she is
Mm.
relentless about? What are the behaviors that she has? When what we often try to do is manifest this like perfect ideal day, but life isn't lifing like that every day, right? What the reality is that there is gonna be challenging moments. There's gonna be moments where you're like, "What the hell is going on? I need to rise right now." Like, you have to make the decision to rise. And so, just like when I started that workout program, it was like, I'm doing this every day. Business isn't that structured, right? We don't have an 8-week workout program for exactly what we're gonna do and know that if we follow it, we're gonna get in shape. It's not how it works. But what we can do is say that I'm the kind of person and really cast that character, cast that future version of ourselves. I call it sometimes your CEO alter ego, or you can make up like a really great name for who this version of you is. It's like getting really clear and specific. How does that version of me treat challenges and difficult moments? And when they feel stretched, do they shrink back or do they choose to expand? And then the other piece of that, once you know consciously, is starting to reprogram the beliefs, identify what they are, rewrite them, but then also to get the body on board with, which typically comes not from the beginning. We can train the positive emotions and start to feel into that future self, and I do a lot of somatic work around that, but it typically comes up when we're actually doing the action. So for example, I know this is like more of the theory. So for example, in when I was in Cape Town, like literally just a month ago. I don't even know if the past month feels like months. I was in Cape Town a month ago, and I was not necessarily being as committed to my workout routine as I wanted. I hated the gym that I had there, which is part of it. You should always
Yeah.
get a gym that you want to go to. And I was just like getting frustrated at myself. And I said, okay, the future version of me, what does she run towards? What is very normal and natural for her? And one of those things was the visibility piece. It's
Mhm.
very easy for her to just show up and do this. And the only way for that to ever be easy was to do it. And so I made the decision right then, I'm going to start this 100-day challenge. I didn't mention this before, but Truth Before Proof, the series that I'm doing is 100 days. And
Wow.
I could have done 30 days because that would have been easier. Because old me would have said, well, if I put this out publicly and I don't follow through, I'm going to feel bad about it. But I made the decision it's going to be 100 days because there is no way to do it without recoding it into my identity. Because I can't just muscle through 100 days. It needs to become part of who I am. And that commitment changed everything
Wow.
because I said, okay, how do I need to show up in this way? I need to remove all of the blocks to not doing it. And I think it was day 6. I was about to get on an airplane. I was about to leave Cape Town. It was like a 16-hour flight back to the US. And I was like trying to record in the airport, and the sound was weird. And I was just kind of left with my only option right now is just whip out my phone in the airport and just talk to camera and like say something random. That was like one of my best videos. But I was like, I cannot miss day 6 because I publicly said I'm doing this, and I posted it, and it showed me you don't have to be perfect. You just need to
Mhm.
get things done. And so much of the time, we're trying to optimize without actually taking the action. But in taking the action and being willing to be seen in the messy middle of becoming the greatest version of ourselves, we actually do become the greatest version of ourselves because we're willing to iterate and get better and refine. So that was like my work, working me. And now I'm like, I can post that vulnerable video and feel really empowered by that. I can continue to show up every day and share my truth and inspire other people.
Katie, you're freaking amazing. Like, I knew this coming into it, but getting to know you and hearing your method and the lessons you've learned and the way you articulate it. One of the first things I ever said to you was how I freaking loved your voice and how I think you're really good at articulating.
Thank
And
you.
truly, like, I feel like I was leaning back for a lot of this podcast just learning and taking notes, and that's like such an honor to be able to experience when having something on the podcast. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for this conversation. This could keep going. Like, you'll be a repeat guest.
Thank
This
you
could keep
so
going for
much.
hours, I'm sure. But yes, while I have you, because our time is up here, while I have you, I would love if you could tell the people listening to this podcast how they can get involved in your world. Because I mean, you guys, I'm sold in. I know you're sold in too. So if you want to work with Katie, she's going to tell you how you can do that right now.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Caitlin. This has been such a great conversation. And it's modalities like this, or not modalities, but channels that make you like refine what you're saying, right? And you ask really
Yes.
great questions. So thank you for that, because I don't know that I would have told you about doing karate as a kid if you had. But yeah, so my visibility challenge, if y'all want to see that, is on TikTok and on Instagram. So you can find me there. Probably most of y'all are on those places. Right now I'm running Magnetic March, which is a challenge about dropping into your magnetism and coding that in as a baseline, which it's not luck, it's actually a skill. And we do this through identity recoding in 15 minutes a day. So regardless of when you're hearing this, um, you can probably still find Magnetic March. We'll see. But from there, I'm actually launching a new space coming up. So I don't want to share all the details yet, but come and find me. And we're going to be doing this work over the long haul, like really getting clear what is your soul vision, what did you come here to do. And when I think about legacy, I really do think about long-term games with long-term people, compound interest. What is the unlimited uncapped upside of pursuing something that lights your soul on fire and getting visible from that place? Like it is infinite. That's how I believe we change the world. We get more money into the hands of women who are doing good-hearted things. And the identity piece is deciding not only who you get to be and your habits and how you move through the resistance that comes up, but it's like part of your identity is actually what goals do you even decide to focus on.
Mm.
That's a big part of it,
Wow.
because you're like, I'm the kind of person who pitches myself to speak on stage. I'm the kind of person who hosts a 400-person event and goes for it. And you're never going to be the kind of person until you make the decision. And that is the most fun part. So there's so much goodness. I'm so grateful that we got connected, and I'm just like hugging you through the recording here. Like, this has been great.
Me too. I know. This is truly, it's been an expanding conversation. And I'll have the links to everything for everybody listening. It'll be in the show notes. So you guys will be able to find her really
Oh,
easily.
one other
Yes.
thing as well, I will also drop. I'm just launching a new freebie that's your next era activation. So it's like if you're kind of in that season of feeling like you need to evolve, we're gonna start to connect a little bit to your soul vision. So I'll drop that so they can access that freebie too.
Oh my God, perfect. You guys, just for listening, you get access to this freebie. You get to find it. You get to get into Katie's world, figure out the ways you can work with her. So y'all know what to do. Go to the show notes, go follow our girl Katie, get involved in her world, send her a DM, say that you came from this podcast, and just start up a conversation with her. She's really fun to talk to. I experienced that today, full force. So you guys get to have that too. Katie, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so, so much.
Thank you.